What's up, beautiful people? I'm Nathaniel Perl,
And I'm Sami Sheva.
and welcome to Curious Chimps Podcast, a show where we explore the infinite complexities of the human experience.
We do not endorse anything illegal, so please consult doctors, do your research, and for the love of all that is holy, be safe. All right, let's talk about drugs.
Curious Chimps.
Sami, what's up?
Fucking feel a little blue lately, but whatevs.
Yeah, man. I know
I'm training myself not to complain. And fuck, it helps a lot, man. People around you are like more willing to be like, he's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And then it makes you feel like you're gonna be okay. And
No, absolutely. It's good to have a good support system, but it's nice to be able to take care of your shit, you know? And
And
feel
it-
like you got your own back.
yeah, like just knowing you can, we talked about it the other day, like steering the ship, like
Yeah.
turning the ship around. I mean, I can't take credit like I got big balls and I'm just like, fuck my feelings, I'm gonna be happy now. Like that's kind of toxic, right? That's kind of bad because you have to face what's going on. But sometimes it's just memory, you know? Like I just have this way of feeling, and then like, you know, there might be something bad going on, and I got some weird days lately, but like I'm like, I don't have to fucking carry that shit constantly.
You're aware of the concept that it's this too shall pass, and that moment's going to fade out, and you're not in that moment. You're not stuck in that moment
Yeah, I guess
Right.
cliches get lost though sometimes.
all the time.
Yeah.
But it's good when you at your foundation know that it's going to pass, and whatever you're going through is just a moment,
Yeah.
and then that just that alone is so much power for you to get through whatever the hell's going on.
It's like sticks to build a little tent of some kind.
Yeah.
And then now this tent is a little flimsy, but it's like this idea that, I mean, without using cliches, like I can actually sit there. It might take fucking 10 minutes, you know? And we don't have a lot of patience these days. I certainly don't, you know, with all the ADD-induced fucking info that I'm getting all the time, which is my fault, you know? Like I'm not going to throw the blame out.
No.
It's a little addictive, I guess. But the idea is like I need to have that patience. And then I start, you know, 5 minutes in maybe, I have no encouragement. But then I start feeling like my brain go, oh yeah, you know what? You're right. And then I'm actually letting go of this addiction. That's the real addiction, is that I want to feel shitty and not change anything or do better and just pout. And then, you know, another 5 minutes pass and my whole fucking mood has changed. And I'm feeling better and my whole day is better. And it's like, holy shit, man.
It's funny you said that. That is a real addiction. The addiction of self-sabotage, I guess you want to call it, or the addiction of.
Yeah.
It's weird, but we all operate on these weird like mechanisms that just shut you down and stop you from doing what you're meant to do or what you can do. It just there's like this internal voice that's repeated in most people's heads, and you hear it even like in high-level athletes or anything. They have this constant self-sabotaging voice behind us. Is that formed from childhood, or is that just something? I don't know what
For
that
sure.
mechanism is.
100%. I'm a big nurturer on that one. Like maybe nature also. A lot of people are just born with a certain brain chemistry or something. I think it's a little more rare though. Or I should say, I think the nurture part is way more common, like this day and age, and all ages behind, you know?
Yeah.
I think we were just used to, everyone was just traumatized and fucked up and just doing their best. And it's like, you don't notice. It just becomes noise. You know,
It can be as simple as you were a kid and you were just doing one little thing that you probably thought was amazing, and then just someone, maybe a parent or a teacher or a friend, it's like, stop doing that. That sucks.
they yucked your
And
yum.
that just started this whole process of
Yeah.
anytime you were doing that again, you just smash yourself down because you thought it was good. But
Self-defeat, self-shame. I mean,
that
it's
just
like,
builds and builds and builds. And I think that's why that archetype of being that old, you hear this all the time, is like people afraid of becoming this old grumpy person who just yells at everyone, is probably just a lifetime of that voice getting stronger and stronger and them not achieving what they want to achieve.
yeah. I mean, in a general sense, I think we're just copying everybody. You know, there's not a lot of people, unless they're just kind of fucking born that way. You know, like most people I find are just doing what their parents did, what their teachers did, and again, it is interpreted by you. You know, like someone might just say, like, I remember one time I was really young. I was like in grade 3 or 4 or something, and I draw a swastika on a piece of paper. And I didn't know what it was. I just saw it somewhere. And I show a teacher. I'm like, what is this? You know, like I drew it, and she just, maybe she was Jewish, or maybe she was just terrified of parents or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know her biz. But before that, I thought she was a cool teacher. And then she's like, never draw that again. You know, like I almost got in trouble. She was like going to kick me out of the class almost, and then like kind of didn't. But I felt so panicked, and I'm like, I don't even know what I did wrong, lady.
Yeah.
You know, like
you genuinely didn't know what it was.
You know, like, no, again, like I understand, no offense to her, but like she was a shitty teacher in that moment.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, I can't express myself. Like I can't even be curious about something. I didn't even understand. I don't even know what I did wrong. Now I'm just like a little more tense for the rest of my life.
Just added into you.
And that's me, because I might have a more of like an elephant memory when it comes to that shit. Whereas someone else might just be like, that was weird, and then just do it again, or just not do it, but not internalize it. Like it's hard being a teacher.
But in general, like that moment for her was probably just a quick reaction of fear or whatever
Knee-jerk,
the fuck it
for
was.
sure. Especially Nazis, bro.
Yeah,
It gets
absolutely.
weird. It gets weird when
Absolutely.
you talk about Nazis.
But then that could have been a great moment for her if she was aware of it to
man.
really teach you something valuable.
That's why I remember it. That's why it pisses me off. It pissed me off in that moment, and it only gets worse with time, because I'm like, you know, you don't give kids the credit. It's hard to, because they're fucking children and they're stomping around and running into walls and punching each other. But it's like, she could have been like, well, look, there were some bad people in history. You're going to learn about it later on in life. But they did some weird things, and they chose a group of people to be very harsh towards, and they even killed some of them. And maybe I was too young to hear stuff like that. But like, you can kind of give a concept and be like, but it's a very complicated thing. And it's a big part of history, and I don't think I should get into it right now. Like adults admitting they don't know is so rare, but it's so good for like I would have been so much smarter with that little moment, and I'm probably a little dumber because of the way that moment was treated. And again, not her fault. It's how I took it. It's how I did. It's what I did with it later on. It's what I'm doing with it now. You know, we're all fucking human, but it is what it is.
No, but that's
we got really deep really fast. Like we just started. I just want to point that out.
It's true.
We just rolled into like
there was
life.
no warm up there.
None.
Well, fuck it. That's the way we go. We could go a little bit lighter, but I just want to go on one more point on what you were just saying. Is the idea of unknown and not knowing, admitting that you don't know something, it starts to get lost as the years come on, and you start getting older, because you don't want to not know something. I guess ego forms so strong in a lot of people. But the most powerful thing you can do is admit that you don't know something.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, I remember I spoke to you about with the DMT, where I allegedly served someone, and before I did, I took a little bit of myself.
Nice catch there.
We're getting better at this. Allegedly. But before I went to go serve it, I took a little bit to see what it's all about. And it was that exact experience was just like, it was like a direct phone line with something. And it was like, you don't fucking know what this is. Don't ever pretend like you do, or preach that you do. Preach that you don't know. And in not knowing is so much power, because everyone will trust you more than you becoming this figure of
And that's what I was getting
authority.
at with the masters. Like, I don't think I'm there yet, and I really have to carve that out for myself, because it's not natural for me. But a master, no one else, nothing else is his master or her master. Like, or everything is.
Everything.
You know, it's kind of a non-dual extreme thing that's going on. Like, I was speaking to somebody the other day, and it was we landed on I think it's already an expression, but it's something along the lines of like, a master thinks himself a fool, and a fool thinks himself a master. You know, like
that's nice. That's true though.
It's fun when you can switch words like that, and there's kind of like a fun poetic dance to it. But it's perfect, because, like, you know, I can't. Again, I give that teacher a lot of forgiveness, because if I'm a teacher, I'm supposed to know. And then in this moment, I'm not gonna, like, it's so unconscious and so deeply buried. I'm not gonna lead myself down this path.
Yeah.
Where I have to hit a wall, and where I have to go, oh, I don't know, you know, or like, I don't know the whole truth. Or maybe she was just like Jewish and really offended. She's like, I don't even want to fucking see that symbol, you know. And it's like, she's mad at a kid. Like, then she's just being ignorant, you know, because I'm nescient. I love the description, the difference. I don't know what's going on, purely. She is ignoring the fact that I don't know. Like, she's in ignorance, and I'm in nescience. I don't know what that symbol meant. I don't know what's going on. You know, it's like there's an innocence to the lack of knowledge. Whereas someone they know something, they know better, but they're ignoring that knowledge. And there's a difference there. Again, like the whole, I love that line from the Bible that says, like Jesus says, forgive them for they know not what they do. And it's like, ignorance is still forgivable, but I like that difference. That's important. There's levels, because like a little kid could walk off a cliff because they don't know how gravity works.
Yeah, it's true.
And that kid will still fucking die, and that's horrible. But they didn't know. You're like, the parent can't be like figure it out, bud. You know, like you have to take care of that kid, and that's where the ignorance versus nescience, when they clash, is really bad. Also,
the difference is when it's intentional ignorance. When the answers are there, when there's things you could figure out, but you choose not to. Is it actually intentional then? Or is it just out of fear and just like right now we have all the information at our fingertips, you know?
Yeah.
We ask questions to each other and friends and teachers, but it's so simple that we can just Google it and figure it out.
Yeah. And that has its own harms because we retain nothing. Experience is still the most valuable teacher.
That is true.
But it is a thinner and thinner line. It's a good question. I don't know.
But then kids are scientists though, because hopefully you don't walk off the cliff as a kid, but for the most part you're getting hurt constantly testing things, touching the hot pot. I
did that once.
Yeah, I think I did too. Or I touched the stove once. I knew a kid that hit the stove.
Dude, my mom told me a story. I don't know if I said it on the podcast already, but we had a wood stove in the middle of the living room, and I put my hands on it.
Oh.
Like, it was one of those old style stoves, like you open the front and throw the wood in, but on the top it has like those metal things you can lift off with the thing. And I literally went like this, and I don't remember it at all. But like my mom said, I had bandages for a few weeks, like a cartoon character, like on both my hands. Yeah,
you might not remember it in the mind, but your body's never going to do that again, and that was because of that moment.
Yeah, big learning lesson. But and you just get lucky, you know. Like I almost got hit by a car. We talked about that on the recent podcast. I landed on my neck on a trampoline. I got hit by a car. Like, dude, so many times I could have died.
We store traumas, and traumas are safety nets that remind us not to do X thing again.
Yeah, it's a evolution thing. It works itself out. But
the problem is that it overworks sometimes, and it retains things it shouldn't retain, and make you do things you shouldn't do that maybe could benefit you. It makes you not do things that could benefit you, you know, because
there's a lot of wisdom there now. Like you were saying online, you know, that's the biggest pro of it. I find is like there's so much information. Like me learning that experience is more valuable has come from a lot of non-experience information. You know, like obviously I got there eventually through experience, but a lot of it was like the cliches we talked about earlier. Like I have a kind of foundation, and when I get smacked to the bottom, that's the stuff I find, and I go, oh, okay, I do understand this, and that comes from books I've read or articles on the internet, or like cool YouTube videos or podcasts. So there's something there to fall back on, but you kind of have to fall. That's what sucks.
And you have to test that foundation over and over again until you fill in all the holes.
Yup.
And speaking of which is tough work, but speaking of which is I'm heading up to do some ayahuasca.
Have fun, bud.
Oh man, I am in a couple of days. We'll do a post podcast too, if I'm up for it. I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, no promises there. Like, see how you feel. It's kind of like a vulnerable state, but it's kind of why we decided to do a podcast today.
But that's it.
Like,
I feel
this is an outro. You know, like waving you off, see what happens. Yeah. Talk about how you feel. Get a little snapshot of now and a snapshot of after.
And I think regardless, I'll probably be. Knowing me, I'll be wanting to record a podcast afterwards, but I'm not going to put that exclamation mark until it happens, and then I see what's going on. But yeah, man, this is going to be it's been weird. You know, usually prepping up to ayahuasca, there's like a mental purge. You've been through it. I've talked to so many people that pre-ceremony, the week or two before, is just their minds going everywhere, shuffling through the files, trying to hide.
Trying to find scrambling for a reason, like excuses, a cockroach running from the light. Yeah,
excuses not to do it.
It's scary, man. Yeah. I mean, I do that when I jump in the pool when it's cold.
Yeah.
So imagine ayahuasca, like.
Yeah, and distractions. A lot of distractions. I've been taking on a lot of my friends' issues and problems and giving more energy than I usually do. And I noticed yesterday I was just fucking defeated. I was like lying in bed at like 5 or 6 p.m. I was supposed to meet my girlfriend. I couldn't do anything. I was just lying there, wiped out. And I didn't do anything that day. It was a very light day. A couple of clients. And and it wasn't like a physically demanding day. But energetically, I think I've depleted all. That cockroach is hiding everywhere, and there's no more places to hide.
And it's just tired now.
He's fatigued. He's trying to take a deep breath, but the light's shining right on him.
Yeah, no, you're a much more sensitive human being than I ever realized, man. Like, I remember a while ago you told me that, and I really appreciate the honesty, because I can deflect and kind of diffuse my emotions onto people. You know, like when I'm angry about one thing, I become angry or sad or whatever, and then everything that comes out of my mouth, everything I do that day, everything's colored by that. And I've consciously been doing it less with you and with other people also, because I don't know what's going on in their head. But like, you kind of shocked me into that realization, because you're not outwardly super emotional. Like, I mean, you'll laugh like a fucking asshole, which is good, but you're not gonna like be visibly. Maybe it's just the shape of your face, man. I don't know, you know. But like, you're not gonna be super like pissed when you're pissed, or like, it's subtle. If I'm really looking at your face and spending time to read micro expressions, maybe I can tell that you're annoyed by something, or you're becoming angry. And then there's different colors to that too. Are you angry at something external? Are you angry at yourself? Is it disgust? Is it fatigue? There's subtlety in every human being, most human beings.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I see it way more in you, and I really didn't before, I guess, is my point. Like, you take on a lot of stuff from other people. It's almost like when you're hurting or when you're vulnerable, it becomes a blanket. You just become open to any emotion outside of you. Maybe it's just like you got your shit together. So then your way of getting the blues is looking for reasons. I guess that's what the blues is for everybody. You know, you might have an initial reason to tumble down the hill a bit, but then you keep throwing yourself down the hill one way or the other. And for you, it's like you're internalizing other people's poop.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never been one to put my stuff on anyone else.
Yeah, you're really good at that.
I don't
I'm
know
the
if
opposite.
I don't know if I'm good at that. It's just what I do.
In my eyes, yeah.
I don't know what the effects are. I know I need to constantly do self-work. I need to do ayahuasca. I need to do rapé every now and then. I need to do my own little isolated retreats here when I just turn my phone off or on silent, and I just do rapé and meditate and then just be in my zone. I don't know if it's the right way to go about it, but I don't know any other way. I think this is the way I've been doing it my whole life. And then instead of making a radical change, I need to work around this style of personality that I am and work to my benefit.
I got that from an anime once. Freedom, the definition of freedom in a practical sense, is knowing yourself and living accordingly.
Yeah. Well,
people who try to change themselves,
it's not going to work.
Yeah, you're going too directly at the problem.
Yeah.
You know, even seeing it as a problem might be a kind of dirty lens.
Well, it's the system you've been operating on. And if you're going to make a radical change in your 30s or in your late 20s or in your 40s, 50s, whatever, there's usually going to be a huge slump and crash at some point where instead of embracing, okay, this is the fucking person I am, looking at it from the good, the bad, and the ugly, embracing it, and then from there, you can harness love, compassion, empathy, and all those things to yourself.
And it might take a few steps down too. Like you have to use the material that you are to create what you want to be. You can't skip any steps there. It's like math. It's like physics. Like, you can't just be something else. It's not.
You can't erase the equation and then just start a new one.
Maybe you can, and there's some cool alchemy thing that I'm not. You know, like maybe I'm just putting these laws on myself, but I have to get to that point where I don't put those laws on myself. You know, there's probably a point of no return.
To get to that point, though, you need self-forgiveness. And forgiveness is realizing who you are at its core.
I think to even start properly is to you need forgiveness, because you have to get in the mud of, you're like, oh, I want to change this. I don't like this, but this is the tools I'm using to get somewhere. You know, like, you don't like the thing that you do everything with, which is you. That's complicated. You know, so you got to take these steps and understand that there's steps, and you might even go backwards sometimes, but it's like the 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of mentality where forgiveness is super important in that moment. And it's almost like guilt. Like you're like, oh, I fucked up, I'm shitty again, or whatever the dialogue is inside. And you don't want to forgive yourself. It's literally a release. It's like you're stopping yourself from shitting on yourself. It's like almost a passive thing.
Yeah.
It's like shavasana. It's like letting gravity do the work. It's like relaxing, and it's tricky because we're creating all the time. We're tense all the time, and that's all the trauma and the memories and shit that you talked about earlier.
And that's talking about self-sabotaging from before. Is guilt is just another form of self-sabotage.
It really is, and we think it's so useful.
I know.
hate that.
And we do it all the time. Any mistake you make, you're your biggest critic, but you're your biggest fucking hater as well.
Yeah.
And it's not serving you. But we all do it constantly. We spoke about this in previous podcasts, but it's worth mentioning again, is that voice, that system is not going to serve you. But then forming guilt towards that guilt is also not going to serve you. So
That's the second arrow.
The second arrow, exactly.
I keep saying that to Maya.
I use it all the time too.
I know. I can't stop.
I told my girlfriend that yesterday. Actually, I'm like, or 2 days ago. I'm like, you have two arrows: the trauma, and then your reaction to the trauma. And the reaction to the trauma is usually worse than the trauma.
I mean, you're piling on yourself anyway.
Yeah.
Even if it's not worse, it makes the whole thing
Well,
worse.
it
You're getting that
prolongs the
extra-
experience.
Yeah, you're getting that extra 10% on top of your 100. Like, why are you doing that to yourself? But again, like that's an empty why. I'm just being a dick. But it's hard. We have talked about it before, and it is worth getting into again, because when we succeed, in moments when we forget the guilt for a split second, or maybe we don't even, but we get somewhere. Now we covet the guilt in a sense. Now we think, oh, I was hard on myself. Pressure makes diamonds. I did it. Like you tell yourself something, and it's a thin and kind of like elusive line to walk, because throwing yourself in an environment where you're challenged is good for you in the long run. And at the time, it might feel shitty, like that's what you're doing with Aya. That's what we're doing with the podcast. That's what, we're trying to challenge ourselves and to grow. But Jordan Peterson says it all the time. If you're going to go overboard, then you're going to shut down. You're going to be emotionally exhausted. Even if you think you can do it, you're going to burn out eventually.
Yeah.
And then if you're under that mark of the sweet spot, then you're going to be bored and you're going to check out in a different way. And you're not going to form any new neural pathways. You're just going to start solidifying into this
Stagnation.
Yeah, and that feels garbage also, and it's even a little more insidious, and it kind of creeps up on you, like speed versus weed.
Yeah.
I like that rhymes. And then the middle is like just sobriety, or it's like being honest with the moment and trying to find. And sometimes we can't even produce that sweet spot in our lives, which is why a lot of us like crash and burn. And that sweet spot is fucking different for everybody, So like my teacher we were talking about, she's at a certain age and she's in a certain profession, so she thinks she's at a level, like I'm level 31. That's fucking bullshit. There's work I haven't done. It doesn't matter how much time has passed. I'm starting now. I'm level 0. I'm level 1. Let's say I'm not level 0, because that means I'm not playing the game, but I'm fucking level 1.
Yeah.
There's no point in pressuring yourself, and that's way easier said than done, because everyone around you in one way or another is doing the same thing to themselves, and thus pressuring you also, because they think that's what life is. And if they haven't done the work on themselves, then that's how they're going to be like, no, that's good. Guilt yourself. Feel like shit. That's how I became who I am.
Yeah.
If I love who I am, I must love the crap I went through. And there's all this crazy unconscious logic. And it's like, hey, how about we stop traumatizing each other and just like enjoy life, because you can't take any of it with you anyway. So like chill the fuck out.
And do you think that's changing? Because I do see a shift in the public, in the way the public talks to each other, and the way we approach things. I think it's a slow process when you're dealing with. Think of it, the process for yourself and how slow it is. Now deal with 7 billion people or 9 billion people. The process is going to be hundreds of years for us to achieve that unity. But it's coming. It just takes its fucking time.
It's hard to answer the question, because I feel like I'm forming that view of the world. So I'm looking for that. Beep beep. I'm forming that for myself. I'm doing it. It must be true because I'm doing it in my own life. And I'm at like a bottom or lower stage where it's like I really feel like I'm just kind of starting. And I think I'm always going to feel like that now that I say it out loud. But that's not the point. I'm looking for that on social media. I'm looking for that by removing myself from some social media and by doing stuff like this. And You know, like we say often when we talk to each other, like, oh, that would have been a good podcast. We should have been recording.
Yeah.
It's just the way we talk to each other now. And then I go talk to someone in my family or like a friend I haven't seen in a while, and we can't talk that way. And I feel like I'm missing something. There's just an honesty or an openness that, you know, it's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
But it's hard when the person across from you thinks you're not doing your best. You know, when you think they're doing their best and you're trying to be understanding, it gets exhausting. And then you just have to start cutting people out of your life because you're not perfect either, and you need to take care of your shit.
Well, that's what has to happen in your path when you're trying to self-better yourself, is that you're going to have to release, and I don't like the term toxic people, but maybe
we all have our shit.
Yeah.
We just got to make space sometimes.
But sometimes you got to
become
cut,
secluded.
Yeah, and you got to cut the people that are toxic to you in your life out, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was friends
Toxic to you.
Toxic to you.
Very good to specify it that way. It's nobody's fault, but like I said it before, like sometimes I feel like with my family, like one of us is the match and the other one's the fire, and we're trying to be friends.
Yeah,
and it's like
not going to work.
Yeah, well, I interrupted you. Sorry.
Yeah, just growing up, I was friends with the wrong crowd, you know. And had I stuck with that group, I don't know where I would be today. I don't even know if I would have done the self-reflection. And
maybe you'd be dead.
Yeah. Legit. We used to get into stupid fights and stuff and get arrested and dumb things like that. And there was moments where I just saw what I did to my family, because we got into like a huge fight at a bar, and then we got arrested, and then my parents had to get a lawyer, and then all that kind of shit, you know? And that was like the moment where I looked at my parents and saw like the not the disappointment, but the hurt, the pain that I caused. Like, holy fuck, this is our baby, our last child. And we had so much hope for him, and then this is what he's bringing back home to us. You know, the police call, we have to get a lawyer. Like, this is what we raised. And that pain I saw was just so genuine, where, you know, it's bad when there's no more words to describe it. You've left your parents speechless.
Yeah, there's just a look on their face.
Like, and and that moment, I'm like, I can't do this. It was an internal process. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not this person. And then I changed. That was like a moment where I had to, it's not that you did a radical change, it's that I had to observe myself at its fullest, come to terms with everything that I thought I was or where I am.
Yeah.
And then you can make the change. But it's not wiping that out and just doing something else completely. I had to come to terms with, I was a shitty person.
It was a click.
Yeah.
In the right direction. It was a notch.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a fucking...
No, exactly. It was literally just full awareness of the moment, of the system I was operating on, and realizing the potential where it can lead me, and then just making the conscious decision to turn the other corner and not go down that path.
And I feel like there's a recipe there or a formula, because there's luck there. Like, someone could have been in your situation, but they had a little less self-awareness or a little less self-love or something, and they turned that moment into like crushing guilt. They're like, I have disappointed my parents to an extreme that I didn't realize was possible. I must be a piece of shit.
And then they double down on it.
And then they double down. Exactly. And again, none of that is like their fault or conscious. And we can notice these things and try to help these people, but that's not the society we live in.
No.
So we need, like, you know, that's why we want to talk about this stuff. That's why, like, someone might hear this and they might think of it, they might see themselves in our words, or they might see someone they love in our words, and they might act just a little differently or give them space a little differently. My family has trouble giving each other space. We keep trying to get in each other's shit and fix each other. And it's like, that hasn't worked yet. You know, that expression where the definition of insanity is trying something over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, there's a big wisdom to that. It might not apply all the time because persistence has value, but you know, you bash your head against the wall enough, even if the wall crumbles, your fucking brain's damaged, buddy.
No, it's a great quote, and it's good to remind yourself, because sometimes that hearing that and reminding that can get you out of that cycle that you're in, just retrying the same fucking steps, and then you realize, fuck, I'm going insane doing this, you know? And
that there's a comfort, you know? That's what's scary. Even though it doesn't work, and even though your life is in pain, you don't make the liaison, like the connection. You don't make the admission that you need to do something different, because that is scary.
But sometimes the delay is a long period, and that cycle can be like 5 years and it repeats, 5 years and it repeats, or 2 years, or 1 month and it repeats.
Yeah.
So it's harder to make a change on something that's gradual like that.
it's kind of a perfect system, you know, like you're gonna keep making the same mistakes, you know, and that's why a lot of people have value in solitude, because you get it's kind of like a reboot. It's the same. It's like another. You can liken it to a psychedelic trip, because you can liken it to something like Vipassana, where you're pulled away. You know, like Rogan always talks about things like snake venom. If you take a little bit, you can become immune. But if you get a nice shot, you're dead.
And that's part of it. Before Vipassana, when I went to Thailand for a month and a half, whatever I went for, I was in a very bad space mentally. I had a bad breakup. Everything just crashed at once. You know, emotionally, my family, my friends, everything just fell apart because I gave up so much for one person. And then when I went to Thailand, it was just removing myself from that bubble and seeing the whole world that I was in from a distance. Yeah. It was so clear, man. That was my Vipassana at the time. Like, I actually had the clear decision to do Vipassana or go to Thailand. Like, I remember I was talking to Matt too. He's like, you should do Vipassana. I'm like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just don't remember.
Because I sent a message. I was in a bad space, and they're like, check out Vipassana. And then I thought about, I got to get out of here. You know, I need to leave. I need to leave this fucking plot of land and think it over without anyone around me to poke at me and remind me who I am and let me figure out who I am.
I think it worked out, because I feel like maybe you could be a little too raw to go to Vipassana, and you're going to be one of those people who like bails after day 3 or 4.
You're right,
because you're like this. Like you're like, fuck this. You know,
I remember seeing someone at Vipassana, and I had a nickname for every person in that fucking place. There's 70 nicknames going through my head. Like I look back at myself and I'm like, had I used that brain activity for something more meaningful, I would have written a book.
I wrote a story in my head.
Oh yeah?
I have a complicated story. I don't know what to do with it. I've told people about it. I've reached out to artists and thought, like, do you want to make a comic book? And when I tell them the story, they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, this is like an anime. Like, this is complicated. And I'm like, yeah, bro. Well, I was in silence for fucking 10 days.
It's amazing what that can do for you, eh?
Yeah.
So there was one guy I had a nickname for. What was he? He was called Vegan. He was just like so in good shape. He looked super healthy, and he only had salads. I'm like, this guy's vegan. And day 3, he was gone. And I was looking for my buddy Vegan everywhere, and he was gone.
Where's Vegan?
I think he just panicked. And I see why. I think maybe it was the Band-Aid was pulled off too soon. The wound was too fresh. It plays against you. Yeah. So going to Thailand, being liberated by just driving on the highway on a motorbike for hours on end, that was like my Vipassana. And that's where I reconnected with myself. And then when I got back, everything was so much simpler. I got back, I'm like...
Everything was so much simpler.
Yeah.
I love that line.
Because I told my friend years ago...
It's the momentum, yeah.
He was... I'm like, you can't solve... Because he was going through a lot of chaos at once. And I'm like, you're in the boiling pot. When you can't solve any problems when you're in a boiling pot, you got to get out of the pot first. And then you can change your life. But if you're in the boiling water, you're stuck in the boiling water. You know? Yeah. So if you can remove yourself from that water, then you can observe the fucking pot of craziness that's happening, and then you can pluck things out. And that's kind of what happened when I went to Thailand. When I got back, I donated and threw out a bunch of shit, a lot of clothes. I'm like, I'm just so much clutter, things I don't need. That's just mental. It's stored mentally, and it's a physical object. There's just so much clutter in my life.
Yeah, there's something to minimalism.
Yeah, so
that's another conversation.
Yeah, but that was part of it, and I just started removing things, and everything just got better and better. It was just, and that's I spoke about in the past is reverse engineering your environment will affect your mental state. It's the same way your mental state will affect your environment.
And like we were talking about, like we touched on it before, like you can gain a momentum internally after, like once you admit that, and then eventually maybe become a little immune to that. You know, you can gain a certain ground inside once shit's calmed down, and then it doesn't matter, or it doesn't matter as much, or you can turn the ship around faster, or whatever.
Or you catch it before it spirals down.
Like I always talk about Shanti, you know, like that girl I met in
Can we get her on? Is it possible?
I hope she would be down.
She sounds like a super fascinating girl.
Oh, she's so cool. She's so lovely. You know, she's very informed, but very humble and very confident and I love talking to her. And I try, I realized that, okay, well, like just to give a little context, I met her at the yoga teacher training, and then we traveled a bit together, and then she left, and we still communicated. But then she went to like South America and really got into shamanism and ayahuasca and did like a bunch of ceremonies, you know, and like got so deep into it that I like we lost, like we can't communicate anymore. She's on another level a little bit. And then I started idolizing her a bit, and I started being like, oh, this girl knows something I don't, or something. And that, I'm glad that's kind of gone now, because I feel like when I talk to her, we can just kind of be friends again, which, like, you know, this is all kind of sidebar. But she explained to me that she was gone from home for so long, and there was a lot of ups and downs. It didn't cure her, like, instantly or something, but there was some rough experiences. Like, a lot of us, our family hurts us, you know, you don't have to explain that. And one way or the other, there's just baggage. And she was gone for so long and reset herself and just became another person in some ways. And then when she did go home, honestly, I feel like she's just kind of passing through. And but it's so different that her family treated her differently. You know, it's not just that she's able to tolerate something or an information that allows her to manipulate the situation better. She's just cooler with herself because she got time to cool down away from the situation for like a good 4 or 5 years to really undo that shit. And then she comes back like, I am a person without you now, but I'm coming back. I'm choosing to come back. You know, I think one of her grandparents was sick or something, and like I you know, details are for her to say, but they reconnected in a much more positive way, and they saw it like, maybe we don't fully understand you and who you are and your life decisions, but we can see that you're happier, we can see that you're healthy, we can see that you're to débrouiller, you're figuring it out. So I apologize if someone doesn't speak French and I just keep switching. I switch to French random. I can't find the words sometimes. And that taught me something. Like I feel like I learned. It gave me permission to go, oh, I got to get the fuck out of my situation. There's no fixing this in the boiling pot.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You know, you're in it. You got to get out of it to see and sort things out. Otherwise, you're boiling with it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And then there's nothing you can do in there. You're just boiling and dying in there.
Yeah.
You know?
You're maybe in a way it's like you're sugar and water, you know, like you're dissolving in it. So you're lost in the thing that you're trying to manipulate or to change. So it just does. It's never going to work. It can't work.
Yeah. And that's it, man. That's a lot of healing is getting out of whatever the fuck you're stuck in and then observing it. And getting out doesn't mean escaping. It means finding a way to remove and observe, not run and hide. That's a big difference between escape and getting out of something.
I think maybe run and hide, like at first you kind of bounce. You know, you just need to, because
but the intention has to be for bettering yourself, not just avoiding. Because you can run and hide physically by leaving a space and just never going back. You can do it with substance in the same space, but then you're self-medicating with drugs that numbify that moment, so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
But until you consciously want to change it, you have to look at it fully, and you have to go right into the belly of the beast.
I feel like for me personally, I don't have that kind of self-awareness. Like I can be very self-aware, but in the moment, I'm too flustered to just feel what I'm feeling and to know what I need in that moment. And I feel like it gets to these extremes. You know, like nowadays, like I just need to change my situation. Like I got to flip that coin and then I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And it might not be the wisest decision, but it's like the pot's boiling over. I that's what I need to do now. And then once I'm cooled off, like I said earlier, like once I'm cooled down a little bit and solidified a little bit, then I can have this memory, you know, and go, oh, okay, like I see this coming now. I'm going to make tiny daily changes, hopefully. As time passes, I'm going to move more towards a regular discipline to maintain something and to build something in pieces instead of that dramatic escape, like that meme that we had, you know, like I forgot where I got it. I should have given the guy credit. It's such a beautiful.
It was a great one. It was, what was it? I'm trying to remember word for word. I'm always bad at remembering these memes. We talked about memory, how it doesn't store.
I haven't smoked weed in like a week, and my memory is so on point, man.
Nice.
It's crisp.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, compared to what it was, it's I don't have to try. I just retain stuff better. I'm more engaged, and it's nice. I think another week or two, and I'm gonna start smoking once a week if I get the urge. But I'm not gonna like impose it on myself either.
As long as it feels like you have it under control.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I did that with the keto diet because we spoke. Maybe I'll get more deep in depth in it on one day about like my addiction to food. And when I did keto for a month straight, I started saying, you know what, I'm going to have a cheat day now. And then I put the cheat day back in, and then the cheat day turned into 3-4 days. Like that was my little hole in the boat that sunk the ship, you know. And now I'm restarting that whole process because I think it was too soon I allowed it back in, thinking I had control over it, and I had no control over it, you know. So it just, as long as it feels, you can test it, but just be very mindful, because sometimes you open that door and then it kicks down the door and just flies in, and then you're doing it all over again, repetitive cycle. You know, I don't know what the sweet spot of time is. Like, is it supposed to be a year? It's supposed to be 3 months? I don't know. I thought a month I would be good, but it wasn't the case.
Yeah, I think I did a good, what was it now? I did 6 months of like a modified paleo. I was pretty strict paleo actually, but it was pretty much meat and veggies all day long. And I just fell right back into it. Like I snapped like a rubber band.
When you had a cheat meal or something, or?
No, it wasn't like a cheat meal. It's like I did 6 months and I was like, and that was my goal. So I felt like I was kind of holding my breath. And that's why I want to smoke once a week. Like I feel like it's disingenuous. I feel like I'm avoiding something because it's just something I've been doing for like, what am I? I'm 32 in April, 17 years. I've been rapping for about 17 years. I love that song.
It's part of your identity.
Yeah,
in a sense.
it
So it's
really
part of your
is,
development.
unfortunately. Like, I hate to admit it, but like, I don't think I'd call myself a stoner, but any of my friends probably would. Be like, oh, that's Sammy. Like, give me like 3 things about him. Oh, he's a yoga guy, smokes weed. It's like number 2 on the list. And then I don't know what the third one is. Like, he... Boop.
Yeah. I have a
He's
buddy.
Italian.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have a buddy he's about a month in, I think, no weed. He wants to come on the podcast when he hits 6 months, and he wants to talk about it because he's in your boat. He's 30 years old now, but he's been smoking almost every day for like 16 years or something. And now that he's cutting out, he's giving himself a new identity, because when you're doing a substance, I don't know, I haven't done anything consistent for 16 years yet, you know? But this breathing is,
Blink.
yeah, but adding a substance for 16 years is, if you really stop and observe it, that's a long time. That's mastery of that substance.
Yeah, I mean...
in terms of hours, right? But it's...
big time.
It's very easy to... There's a fine line between, is it medicine or is it poison now? You have to really disassociate the two.
Yeah, I always wonder also, like, it's kind of like a pointless thread to pull on, but I always wonder, like, what if I stop for years, like 4 years, 5 years? Will I recalibrate? Will I, like, be okay? Have I done some kind of permanent damage? Because I've stopped for a month. Like, I used to stop for a month every year for most of the time that I've been smoking. One time I stopped for a solid year. Another time I stopped for 6 months. Recently I stopped for like 5-6 months again. Like, something happens, something changes, but it's not long enough. And then when I start again, like I feel like smoking once a week is this sweet spot, and I get to kind of enjoy something that reboots me a little, makes me forget some trauma, and it kind of etch-a-sketches me a little bit, and it makes me take myself less seriously. Like, there's a lot of value to it. And as soon as I abuse it, it's like abusing anything. It's just bad. It's really bad. My memory starts going. I feel lazy. I feel very unmotivated. I feel a little depressed. I feel because I'm being soothed all the time, I have less ability to deal with my emotional responses. My emotional responses themselves are more acute also.
Yeah.
Just everything starts, like, the first thing I said, my memory starts going. It's amazing how important that is in life. And like, I just choose to zonk it.
Yeah.
And it's like, from like my job, my relationships, my day-to-day tasks, just everything, suddenly I can't remember stuff. It's so imperative. That's reason enough.
Yeah, it's true.
To just be like, bruh, like, you're learning anything. Learning to better myself, learning about like even the good traumas when I bump up against something and I need to remember that's not as physical anymore. It's kind of fleeting. Everything's fleeting. Anyway, I'm getting ranting. I catch it earlier now.
Yeah. No, but it's true. And now that you're getting that memory back, that's like you're realizing the value of that. I mean,
of sobriety, of just being. It's like sobriety is not a thing. It's a non-thing. We have a word for doing nothing.
Yeah, but
just
even
chill
then,
out.
something's changing daily. It could be you can wake up in a better state. And sobriety is a weird one too, but I guess not enhancing yourself, or is enhancing the right word? I don't know.
I like that though, because that's what I was getting at. Like as it stands, maybe if I stop for a fucking decade, I'll be good. But I don't know if I have the patience to go that long, because I feel it enhances my life if I smoke once a week.
Nice.
Once, maybe twice, and
So
then I could
it's just
skip.
a matter of balance, and just of moderation and control and discipline. And then it's like anything. If you don't approach it with discipline and moderation, it's just going to become poison. Whether it's junk food, whether it's smoking, whether it's just fucking lying on the couch all day watching TV.
If anything that's unconscious is driving you,
That's what it is. It's
and
all
instead
about
of you driving it.
Yeah, it's whether you're making it a conscious or unconscious decision. If you're consciously smoking once a week because you want to have a good time, watch a movie, laugh, chill, whatever, that's fucking great. But if you're unconsciously smoking because you feel like your life sucks or you feel like you want to avoid something, that's where anything can become a poison.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's really about intention.
And that's a double poison, because you're shooting yourself in the foot with what we talked about, like how the poison of choice could be affecting you negatively, but also you're choosing to like you have something accessible and you're associating it with stress, and every time you're doing that, you're avoiding trying to change yourself. And like I think now, like, I don't want to be too hard on myself, but the truth is the truth, and a little bit of guilt can be revealing. The fact is, I have a hard time changing myself. Like you've said it before. You pick up on, like, you're a disciplined human being. I'm sure you're hard on yourself also. We all are. But on paper, you will pick a task and you will get it done. Like, you made this fucking room, bro. Like you are a force.
You see,
I'm not a force yet.
Yeah.
Like, let's just put it that way.
that self-sabotaging voice, like, I take no credit in my mind for this. Like, it's annoying. I wish I could, but I don't.
It doesn't serve you. It's fine. A lot of the best yogis, they deflect
Maybe that's what
credit. It's a good thing. I mean,
I hope so.
pat yourself on the back every now and then, see what it gives. Maybe it's good, maybe not. Maybe it enhances your life. Let's check it out. But a lot of people will say, "Oh, I know you're thanking me, but I can only thank my masters." And then they would say the same thing.
Nice humbleness and humility.
Yeah, because really, what does it give you? Like that like, I am not the shaman moment that you had with DMT made you a better server. Like, and serve. The word is
I
serve.
was gonna say a keyword.
Yeah, like you're serving the substance, but you're serving. You're literally serving. Like,
Don't ever get it wrong. That's your position in this.
and that's gonna set you up for success, because it is a vulnerable environment. In a physical way, in a spiritual way, in a psychological way, you're more prepared now because you're respecting it more. You're not thinking that you're coming in, cracking the whip, like controlling the situation.
That's a very deep point. Server, and Aubrey talks about this all the time, about becoming going into service and serving others,
and what that looks like for different people. Because people think it's, go to your homeless shelter or give away all your stuff or whatever it is.
No, but you should always approach life as a servant. You're serving whatever you're giving to the public or to anyone in your life should be from a place of as a server, not as an authoritative boss type of persona. It should come from a state of humility.
Leading the way, sort of, for real, in front, kind of, instead of trying to push the situation, I have a friend that I met in India, actually, a really cool guy. He described to me, like, there's a concept or a school of yoga called karma yoga, and it's the idea that, like, you focus on your actions in a real nutshell. You can expand on this; it gets very philosophical, but it's like what you do creates what you get, and then what you get is what you have, and what you are in the physical sense, which is bullshit anyway when it comes to yoga. But then that is what you use to obtain, again, to control what you do. And it becomes this cycle, this upward spiral. And he put it in a perfect sentence. He said, everything we do is God serving God. And it's like you close the loop now.
It's pure truth.
It's like hard to even conceptualize.
It's very hard to conceptualize.
But like when you walk around and think my footsteps, my words, my breath, my gaze, the everything I'm doing to myself, to the other, to my food, to the animals, to nature, doesn't matter what it is. It's God serving God. It becomes this all-inclusive resort. It becomes this all-inclusive philosophy, and then the best definition of God in my mind starts budding in your mind, which is we're all just a thing, you know? Like God's not like a sky dad or like a dude, you know? Like we're the dudes, but like you and me are pieces of a bigger thing, and then that thing is a piece of a bigger thing, and you can just do that. It's turtles all the way up. Yeah. It's in a blinding, almost don't understand it, but still try to keep it practical. We're all an ecosystem. We're all a thing, and you can call that God. And in an impractical, philosophical, mind-blowing way, you can also call everything God. And it's the purity of consciousness that coalesces into a table or a person or a deity. I don't know how
anything
life
that's
works.
manifested into reality is a figment, is a piece of God.
Exactly. Of God. I love that. It's like you're not God.
No.
that gets squirrely.
Yeah.
But everything and everyone is of God.
Of God.
And then it's like a thing. It's like dividing infinity. It's a piece of infinity, so it's still infinite. And mathematically, that is, it actually makes sense on paper. It's very confusing in a practical sense, but you know,
it's hard to conceptualize that though.
It is. It's.
You know? It's
infinity is a squirrely thing. We should get a mathematician on here. We should
love to,
materialize that for some people, because my buddy Andrew, I hope he's listening. We spoke on infinity for hours once, and he blew my mind.
What blew my mind was on a podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he said, like, we know infinity 1 to infinity, right? Like that in numerology, in math, but then there's bigger infinities, and you're like, what the fuck is a bigger infinity than 1 to infinity? It gets really stupid. If you go into the decimals, though, there is like an infinite amount of infinities.
Just in the 1 to 2, yeah.
Because you go 0.1 to infinity, 0.01 to infinity, 0.001 to infinity, and that infinity is insanely larger than the whole number, prime number infinity.
It's a bigger infinity.
And that one blew my fucking mind, because that one never ends. Because you can just drop that decimal another point. The
amount of infinities within 1 to infinity never end.
Yes,
it's just it's a weird concept. I don't even know. Like we're not equipped to even talk about this.
I don't even know where to go with that.
I really don't.
That's like the cap of my knowledge of what infinity is. Is that what I just said? That's all
me
my
too,
understanding.
More or less. Like I can spiel, I can parrot some stuff, but I really don't understand. Like there's a great video by Vsauce. I love Vsauce. They have 1, 2, and 3 Vsauce. Go on YouTube if you don't know these guys. Sometimes they're long, sometimes they're a bit math heavy, but there's one that's really good. And I think you can just type like Vsauce Infinity. I'm sure there'll be like 3 or 4 videos because he's done a lot of them, but you'll know the one I'm talking about. And he starts explaining the size of different infinities, and comparing them mathematically. One has to be bigger than the other, because let's say 1 and on is an infinity, is a conceptual infinity, and it's a hard infinity. It makes sense. You can just count up forever. But then you can say like 1 or like n plus 1 kind of thing. So it's like whatever number you plug in from 1 to infinity plus 1. So 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3. Like you change every number within the structure of the first infinity, and now you have another infinity that is mathematically larger than the other infinity, than the first infinity. And so then you can keep doing that.
Yeah.
Because you still have 1.
N plus 1 plus 1 or something like that.
Yeah, you can, like 0 plus 1 is 1.
Yeah.
1 plus 1 is 2. Now it's 1 bigger or something. I don't get it. Honestly, again, like I said, I don't want to get into it. I don't understand it. I'm sure there's somebody yelling at us.
Vsauce, check it out. I wanted to talk to you about Of God because there's been a big trend right now with the Bufo Toad DMT that's been coming out a lot. You're seeing a lot of celebrities doing Toad DMT, Mike Tyson. There's a bunch of others you could find.
It is popping up more online too.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I'm happy though because it is a very powerful medicine. You know that I did a ceremony with it.
Yeah, you told me about it.
And whenever I hear other people coming online talking about it, especially celebrities because they have a big audience, it's incredible to see the parallels with my experience of what they had. And
it's a little more narrowed, a little more similar.
It's so similar.
Oh yeah, cool.
And it's almost like a confirmation for me because I knew it after the first experience. What I got out of it, I'm like, wow, okay, this is the truth. But hearing it over and over again, it's like God's talking to God in a sense where you're hearing the information just bouncing back. But what it was that, and there was that concept that we say of God and that God is in everything. It was so clear on NN-DMT. Not NN, 5-MeO-DMT, sorry. And that's the toad medicine.
Okay.
And there's a difference between the one we've done. NN-DMT is a small molecule change. I'm not a chemist. But 5-MeO is very similar, but the experience it's not even comparable.
I thought it was the other way around. So the 5-MeO is the...
5-MeO is the toad.
Okay.
Yeah. And I may have mixed that up in the earlier, but NN is the normal DMT that we've been doing.
Fucking Google it.
Yeah. So 5-MeO comes from the toad, or you can synthetically make it too, but the experience is almost no visual. It's all feeling.
Oh, wow.
It's like so deeply rooted in feeling. And the reason there's no visuals is because I don't think you're even in your consciousness in your body anymore. You're gone. And I remember being completely gone when I did it. It was 2 nights. We did 2 days. We did the first day a light dose. And the second day, if you want to go deeper, you can go deeper. And the second day I told him, like, look, I want to go fucking far. Like, it was a little bit of ego, but I wanted to go deep. So he gave me a giant dose. But I remember completely obliterated from my body. It was gone. Like, there was no recollection of Nate. There was no words. There was no concept. It was just feeling. And even describing it, it's already back in the ego realm, and it's not it. But for the sake of explaining it, I'll describe it with words. But I remember this, like, it was like a pool, as if someone was pouring a bucket of water into this brain. And that bucket of water was the source field of all our consciousness, just this pool of consciousness tuning into each body. And I was there. I was back in the bucket I was back in that flow of water of consciousness. And I was just there, and it was just this vibration, just like vroom, vroom, vroom. And I was just literally thoughtless. I was just complete awareness and experience with no attachments to this reality, to words or anything. Just being.
That's crazy.
And that was
That's amazing.
It's timeless. That's everything, because there's no more concept of anything. You're not you anymore. Yeah. And you in the sense that Nate and Sami and whoever's listening,
you're still perceiving you, in a sense. You're just like not.
I had no identity. I couldn't even remember me. There was no Nathaniel's this. That person was gone, completely disassociated. And it's not even being anymore. It's just awareness. It's consciousness and awareness. And that's where I was for the vast majority of the experience. And then as time, we're bound by time. So as time was fading, I'm coming back to my body. But for that moment, I could have been there for infinity. I don't know how long time is over there. You know, time is relative to this physical body.
It's like a dream, like it happens in a few seconds, but it's so much sensory input that it consolidates when you wake up.
Yes.
So you have these memories, air quotes.
But the weirdest fucking part is that when I was coming back to my body, I was, instead of being in the bucket, I was back in that stream, and I'm seeing the stream going into this fucking portal, which was my brain, and it's like opening, and then I got this huge hug and welcoming from Nathaniel, from my ego, grabbing me and crying. I started crying and saying, like, I don't ever leave again. I'm sorry. Or like, I'll never be mean to you again. Like, I'm so sorry. Come back. And it was like holding on to me because it needed me to survive.
Oh.
And I remember, like, I was crying. I was probably crying the whole experience, but I had no recollection that I was crying. I was gone. So I came back to this fragile, scared body, and it was just like this huge moment of self-love and comfort and just appreciation for being alive. And that's when I hear with Mike Tyson talking about his 5-MeO, how he gained this appreciation for being alive and that there's so much more. And you're seeing more and more stories talking about the same appreciation that they're getting from 5-MeO. And I felt it. And that was so valuable. And that experience, it's always in my mind's eye. Like the emotion stuff kind of faded from time, but the experience, the realization is still there for life, I think.
I wanted to ask, like, how do you feel now about that? That's an intense experience. Like, is it a flame that you can fan? Is it just like so alien that you just kind of have to walk with it the way you described it to me? Like, that's the best you can do? Like,
I think NDMT, the one that we've smoked, that's one is more impractical. It's hard to really take any information from that because you can just smoke it and then some alien's telling you about the universe. And then
feels like a washing machine. Yeah.
And then you come back, you're like, okay, what the fuck do I do next?
Yeah.
5-MeO was more of a realization and confirmation that there is more out there than this experience.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever preach it anymore, like convince people, but I know in my core, and this is a belief system, so you can't fight me on belief, but I know in my core, that it's all good. Whatever happens, it's all good. You're going to go back to that stream of consciousness, and the story will continue from there. And maybe I'll get poured into a different vessel. I don't know, but I know when this story ends, this is just this story that ends.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much more to the bigger scheme of stories than the Nathaniel story that I'm operating on right now.
You're like a story within a story or something. That's dude.
Or it's what you said. It's an infinity, and then there's a bigger infinity.
Yeah,
you know?
like you can go inward forever in this experience, and it's not timeless, but it's a bounded infinity. Again, Google math on the internet, but it does have perceivable limits, but within those limits, it is endless.
Yes.
So then there's a bigger endless exterior that's possible,
And
that you kind of experienced.
Yeah.
Or I mean, guess you couldn't experience it in the way that you know experience, which is why it's so hard to describe. The way you described the coming in, like that's so common with meditation. I have a friend who described a mush trip to me recently, and for some reason he was inspired to sit and meditate, and he's not much of a meditator, and he had this shocking experience that's very similar. And for me, it feels like he's describing some Kundalini thing, you know, like it sounds familiar, and then now you're describing it, but in a very different. It's still different because there's the transition back into the experiencer sort of, you know, and how it kind of. Like it was slow, and you're pointing to something. Yeah. So it's like there's a space in your mind now that you didn't have before, and you're kind of, it's almost physical. You're like there. Yeah. I don't know. I can't put. It's like in another dimension, sort of.
Like I remember after smoking, I went like this, like to go back, and then my consciousness just kept going, and it was there.
Oh God, you know. But like the way you describe it, this is how I understand consciousness. It like the yogic philosophy doesn't clash with science. It's just an amalgamation of consciousness. And it's the same way we think of gravity. Like there's a field, and the more you accumulate mass, the more it interferes with that field, and then you get what we call gravity. And it has a weird effect, but it's everywhere. It's prevalent in all of the universe. You just need a thing that kind of distorts it and then kind of pinches it off so that there becomes this effect, this visible force, and that's consciousness also.
Yes.
There's just this prevailing force. And they might even be the same thing, just matter itself. You know, like I think I've talked about it on the podcast. But this table has a certain awareness of us because it knows my finger's there. And if you're a scientific materialist, you're like, oh, you're an idiot. It's just magnetism because the atoms are bumping into each other. But why do they interfere with each other? That's just a physical reaction that particles are having. But then you can build atoms with that, and you can build like molecules with the atoms. You can build cells with the molecules, and you can do this all the way up until you get a human being. Yeah. And the same way you can put a bunch of matter together to get a planet, and then we're all not flying off of it for some reason. You're crunching something into a way where the consciousness is expressed, and we call it consciousness because we're self-aware. So then the ego gets involved and all this fun stuff, but that's all it is, really. We're just a lot of consciousness put together, so we're like, holy shit, you know, like we're staring at our hands and talking to each other and inventing stuff, and we're depressed and stuff, and like all this weird shit. That's crazy. It's true. Anyway, are we out of time? Yeah, let's cut it. We'll cut it there. Yeah. So ceremony, man, whatever happens. I'll go there with open mind and heart. That's the best I can do. I'm sure they're all wishing you the best also, but I love you. I hope you have whatever you get out of it, you know, just be safe, be good, and have fun, and
And that's it.
I'll talk to you when you get back.
And travel well.
And stay curious.
Yeah, brother. Peace, brother.
I love you, bro.
Yeah. Okay. C'est bon.
C'est bon quand c'est bon.
Oh, yeah. It's weird that we don't actually have to go anywhere. Like, we're not actually bound by a schedule.
Yeah, that's true, huh?